This is intended for over 18s. Please gamble responsibly, and when the fun stops, stop.
Truth is, these two are big talkers, so they don't know how to stop.
You can talk.
I know how to stop. You two can
Are
go
you
on
saying
all
we
day.
don't know how to
Jamie's
stop?
just saying we don't know how to stop.
You're talkers.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the second episode of the Dream Spin podcast. Today we're going to be going to our community. Really, one of the big reasons why we've started this studio, community driven from streaming. So we're going to be answering questions sent in from our community. We've got some great questions and we're going to try and dive deep, tackle them head first and answer questions sent in from our community about our game, about the studio, about the market. And hopefully we're going to have some interesting answers. Debs M has asked us, or said, that our USP has been that we've been streaming for several years before we've gone down this route. So we've got vast knowledge of slots, marketing, providers, contacts within the gambling industry. Hopefully she's right with that. Have you found this process easier, or do we feel more under pressure because we've got that knowledge and there's an expectation as players to provide something to our audience? Do we have that added pressure to now deliver because our game is going to be very much judged by our community, and our faces are in front of it?
I'm going to say, right, I think that there is a massive pressure because we spend a lot of time playing other people's games and kind of passing our opinions on it. And I think we know that, one 94% game is, you can compare it to another 94% game. It's going to be preference, isn't it? It's going to be what people prefer. You can't really say one is inherently better than another. But I think, I'm very conscious of the fact that people will make a distinction on our game and say, oh, I don't think it's good because of this, or I don't think it's good because of that. But I really do think that it comes down to trying to nail down what the majority of people like and trying to hit a few sort of key things that we've picked up from the community over the last few years. If we're doing that right, then I think that, okay, we want to hope that the majority of people can at least give us a pass, even if it's not their cup of tea 100%. They should realise that we've tried, and I think that's what's really important.
Will wants to get marks for trying.
I'd
love our game to be successful on the basis of we've tried.
Yeah,
tried.
I don't feel. Again, I'll be honest. I'm not involved in the development. And I appreciate in general. I've had a little bit of a more back seat on this, but I don't feel pressure. I think you're going to get, in the grand scheme of things, I've always said that the community is important, but this is going to be such a minute people in terms of actually playing this game. So the pressure certainly for me doesn't come from the community as much as I want them to be happy. But pressure aside,
you would feel some pressure playing the game on a stream in front of your community?
No, not at all. I'm super proud. I've just told you, with the first time, I think this is the best game anyone's ever launched, was the first game of a studio. So
I agree with you. I don't think I'd feel pressure. I'd feel a bit of nerves. There's apprehension. You're waiting to see that initial feedback. But I'm very proud of what we've done. I'm confident. I've always tried to be confident throughout the way, haven't I? And sort of when things are down geared. We've all had different moments of that, oh, is this working? But I think it's less pressure, more apprehension. But as long as you're proud and you've got that self-belief and you feel like you've done a good job, then that's half the battle. If we ever get to launch a slot where we're a bit, not sure about it, uncertain, that's difficult. Hopefully we won't be releasing games where we don't have that self-conviction behind. DJ503 Gareth has said, high level, what is the overall goal of having our own game studio? What's your goal? Who wants to kickstart this?
Oh wow, my goal. I just want to be a leading game studio. I understand that it's competitive, but I always go back to our current business that 10, 15 years ago I would never imagined that you could ever be ranking in Google for certain keywords related to casino. Absolutely no reason why we can't create games that players will like for the foreseeable future. That's my goal.
Yeah, for me, it's all about it's all about the nitty gritty of the individual games. It's all about kind of making something that I'm really proud of. Do you know what I mean? And kind of collectively, taking that as a group, but kind of something that I can say, look, I had a part in this thing, and what we've done here is really special, and that it stands out next to some other games that I respect. and just to be included in that same kind of like to be included in the same sentence as some of those games that I really love. Be like, okay, have you seen that new game from Push Gaming? That's great. Oh, have you also seen that new game from Dreamspin? That's great as well. That's kind of what I want to achieve. To be up there with some of the great games.
I mean, I truly believe that we've got just superb foundations to do something here in terms of our relationships, how we've grown together. Josh and I have been together for many years and as best friends and never had a fight. And then you've come into the picture and just seamlessly... We have had fights. A few fights. And you've seamlessly just, taken to us, and it's just been a phenomenal experience. So it's nothing but proud, and I've just got the first word on our studio, which is everything, which is the dream. And this is where we need to take us. That's my
This
ambition.
isn't a question, but name. Dreamspin. So one of the... You're right. Dream, as in dream big. Dream spin. I think we've said it on streams before as well. A dream spin can be that dream spin. Everything connects. Everything works for you. Maybe there's a big win there. So there's a bit of that in it. For me anyway. We didn't come up with the name because of that, but there's some connotations there. My goal is basically similar to both of you. Being a bit business orientated, and when we're doing marketing, we're always looking at budgets and ROI. Sort of, and it's bad business to an extent, but disregarded some of the budget to start and said, let's worry about the money and revenue sort of secondary. I want to build good games. I want to be proud of the games and sort of not whatever the cost is, but focus on building a product, getting our name out there, building a reputation, building games that engage players, and hoping off the back of that, the rest falls in line. So my short-term goal is not necessarily to compete with the big players. It's to sort of validate and prove that we can do it and build games and deliver games that our community, even though the community, as Jamie's touched upon, is a very small fragment of the overall player base we help, build something that they're going to...
Oh, they're a great insight.
And then later down the line, and it's a secondary question that Debs has asked, and she said, have you considered making a unique slot or a mechanic like BTG, Big Time Gaming, did with Megaways? That is something that we were conscious with our first game, or maybe our first few games, to not go completely left field, because it can be dangerous and it's high risk. If you come up with something that's very difficult to understand, very new, I was going to say it's 50-50, it's maybe like 90-10. If it fails and flops, you could be in trouble. Later down the line, we've got some ideas for some different and interesting and dynamic mechanic. So one of my goals actually with the studio is to create a new mechanic that could then be licensed out and used by the providers. I think that'd be really cool and a great achievement to see some big names license your own mechanic.
Yeah, I think as far as like creating new mechanics is concerned, there's no shortage of like innovation or ideas between the three of us even. But like it really is, you do have to balance that against the kind of business risk that associated with like you're going to release a new slot. I mean, you're going to release a new slot with a new mechanic. There's a very high probability that it just flops, and and that would be a shame if you've only managed to get one game to market and you did something really unique and it just failed because it didn't quite catch on. That would be a shame. So like I do think there's kind of like just an overall business practice with regard to like, okay, we'll have those ideas, but we'll make sure to like sprinkle them through like our first 6 or 7 games rather than just be like in the first game, right, okay, we're just going to go out there and do something completely crazy and new, and like maybe it wins and maybe it fails.
Yeah, there's a few stories of huge success really, isn't there, in terms of BTG and Pop. Those mechanics in terms of my head that they really stick out and actually made a name for those studios.
Yeah, that Pop mechanic did stand out for me the first time I played their games, enjoyed it, and I wasn't surprised to see that cotton on and how successful they've been, because that was, it didn't completely reinvent the wheel, but their take on it's quite unique. They put it together extremely well. So yeah, it's when you play a game and it feels good and then it is good, you sort of then start believing as well. You do understand what players like. So yeah, I think have something like that would be great. Got a good question here from Flash360 over on our forum. Peter, he said, what's the hardest thing to balance as a slot player first, so as streamers first, and then as a provider in terms of volatility, in-game bonuses, base wins, putting it all together, and as what we enjoy as well, and putting that together in a game or coming up with ideas. So how hard is it to balance what we actually enjoy as players and then, creating a game that ultimately is going to work?
I think for me it's a lot easier than it is for William. I like volatility, and that's key for me in a game. So whereas Will, not that Will likes to think for the player more and giving more back, I like the excitement of huge wins and huge potential. So for me, that's what drives completely.
It's been a really, I don't want to say contentious part of our first game, but certainly a lot of back and forth of that balancing between volatility, what we believe some players are looking for in the market and our community, and actually also a game that is hopefully going to appeal outside of streaming as well, and to other segments and other player bases.
There's an argument to say that's like the only thing we've kind of not disagreed on, so to speak, but there's been contention. It's been a point of disagreement.
Like, do you know what I mean? I think it's dangerous, really dangerous, to enter the market with a volatile game as your first game. And I think the more volatile that you make that, the more dangerous it is, because you're going to create some great experiences for a few players, and then you're obviously, by definition, you're going to have some disappointing experiences for a lot of other players. And I understand, and I think we all agree that, as streamers, we want to see games that can really, really pay out. And when we're playing our game, people want to see that potential. But obviously have to be conscious of all the people that are going to do maybe 200-300 spins, get a bonus, and then it's going to be a low bonus, and they're going to be like, oh, that's really disappointing. And you want to hope that you've just given them enough in terms of the gameplay that they're going to come back and give it another chance. Yeah,
absolutely. And that ties into next question from Miss PJ, who's a mod and a great member of our community. So how do we all decide what we wanted for the first game? We've all got different, types of games we like, whether it's mechanics and volatility. So how do we come together with our different ideas so we all end up sort of singing from the same page?
You're probably best to pick up on this, because do you remember at the start when we first started putting together the ideas for this game on that whiteboard? Do you remember? We were sitting in Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, essentially that's how we started, a whiteboard, rough ideas, all basically pitching in all our ideas into that game.
You smashing my laptop down.
Smash Jamie's laptop down. That's only because you got bored and
my attention span wasn't great.
Concentrate, this is important. So actually with our first game, we actually brought in all our ideas together and bounced off what we like. And as it transpires, not one thing from that game really followed through. It's small parts, but in terms of the initial look, how many reels, how many ways, and the mechanic, very different. So I guess to answer that question, it's sort of all working together and, trying our best to sing off the same hymn sheet, putting our ideas out there. And, we sometimes go with a consensus. There's times where two of us say we're really set on this and the third sort of concedes. If one of us said absolutely not, and that's happened, we haven't done it. So there hasn't been any overruling. There hasn't been one part of this game where,
which is kind of nice having three partners that it basically has to be a democracy.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things.
And we've found plenty of middle grounds, I'd say, to say, okay, let's do it like
because
this with a sprinkle of that.
We're all on the same hymn sheet. We all want to create good games, and we're all in this. We've all got the same passion about it, and no one's up against each other. We're all together. So it's always been, I think, a pleasurable flow for me.
I think moving forward, when it comes to looking at future games and deciding between us, what ideas get included and what ideas get tweaked. I think it's great that for one person to come forward with an initial idea and then sort of just sell it, pitch it to the other two, and then kind of you can kind of gauge, I think, a lot of the time from someone's reaction, how if they think it's got some,
in a strange way, I feel like we're all so strongly on the same page in many things. I don't know. That's why I feel. It just feels like whenever we sit in games, no one's been like, when we discuss it, always on the relatively same page, in my opinion, which is great.
Montrose wants to know, I hope I've pronounced that all right. We've touched upon this a bit, but with so many different slots and providers out there. So we talked about the market being saturated. Has it been hard for us to think of an idea that stands out from the rest? And is that something we're trying to work towards?
When it comes to can you come up with a unique idea? I think you can always I think the best idea is kind of take upon something which everyone kind of acknowledges and understands, and then just tweaks it very slowly to make it a little bit unique, rather than going completely left field and coming up with something totally new. Yeah. I think that actually that's going to turn more people off than get turned on. Most of the ideas,
or take features and functionalities from other games.
Take features and mix them together. There's plenty of it can be influenced by another popular idea, and you put it together, put your own spin on it. And you end up creating something that is new, that is unique, but still comes from a place which players are a little bit comfortable with.
Yeah, and I think on our key features, that's what we've done. We've kind of done it. It's well-known features, but with our own spin.
To expand on that, I would say, so in terms of standing out, so obviously we talked about one of our USPs to start is, as streamers, being close to players and trying to understand what we think makes a game good. And one of the things that you guys didn't touch upon is actually it's not just the feature or the mechanic, but it's how that's all packaged together. And that's where we're trying to come in and say, okay, we haven't reinvented the wheel with some games, with some concepts, but we believe we've put it together to create a 7, 8, 9 out of 10. So there are countless games out there where actually the maths is not bad or good even, or it's very similar, or the production of that game for whatever reason, in such a competitive market, if it's design, if it's sound, if it's animations, if the speed's not right, you drop off a mark, become 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10. And that is massive difference between a successful game and a game that gets played more and gets some lobby positions. So for me, in terms of being different to start with, very much our focus is on the execution and the full package and the detail in everything. In where everything goes, how everything looks, spin speed, how reels land, small tweaks and animation. So we're very focused as a new studio in trying to make sure that end product really sits high, even if the some of the mechanics aren't groundbreaking or some of the features aren't groundbreaking. With our spin on it, because we certainly put our spin in the first game on stuff that we don't think's been seen before. So yeah, I would answer that by backing up what you two said, by just making sure that end production has that fine-tuned and level of detail. Here are the 3 things we've learned starting a gaming company.
Maths before concept. Yes, it's really important to get your maths knuckled down before you come up with a game concept.
Don't get hamstrung and caught up on your initial idea.
Never underestimate how long something simple can take to actually do in development.
So, Will, what do you think the biggest mistake is we've made since we made the game?
I think one of the main things that we should have done is really had all the art kind of drawn together on one screen, so we could actually sort of put things against each other, because that's really important in terms of what people expect from a slot game. Great contrast between the symbols, the background, making sure people's eyes are drawn in the right place. That's quite difficult to do after the fact. We've got some great art, and luckily we've come out of it looking really good, but it's been a long while getting there.
Josh, what do you think? How important is the aggregator in building online slots?
Very, very important. Without an aggregator and a distributor, can't get your game in the casinos. Ultimately, you can't make money. So, it's vital that unless you're going to set up your own game studio and take your own licensing and do your own certification and try and sell your game and build all the tech, your own RNG, is it RNG? RGS. To build your own RGS, which is a remote gaming server, to plug into all the casinos and do all that, you need someone with big distribution to get your game out in many markets, many casinos, and ultimately give your game biggest chance of success possible. Jay, what one piece of advice would you give to another startup that wants to start developing games or become a slot studio?
Listen, I think it's a very, very saturated market place, and there's hundreds of studios out there. I think the key is to try and find a unique selling point to your studio or an angle that you've got outside of just building games. As you said, there's hundreds of studios out there and hundreds of people trying to get more and more games in the casino. So to try and find that unique selling point that makes your game that little bit different is your way into the market.
We've got some questions here about the UK market in terms of different games now for the UK, no bonus buys, quick spin, auto spins, some gamble features. How have we considered that with our games, our first game and future games? You know, how do we look to tackle that? How do we look at creating games that hopefully are going to be suited for the UK market and beyond?
I think there are some misconceptions about, like, the inclusion of a bonus buy in a game and whether that kind of excludes or maybe puts UK players at a disadvantage. I think it's really clear that basically all games which have base gameplay should be kind of accessible to the UK market and play well for the UK market. If they're not, that's because they hasn't been attention given to it. From our point of view, we built the game that the game should play well from base gameplay and be able to get the bonus quite frequently and for it to be fun to play and like well-rounded, for people approaching it in that way. But we've also added the bonus buy. We see that as being like a different route to, a different entertainment route, but that stands on its own, but just complements, the base gameplay. It's not kind of like, it shouldn't be that anyone is being let down by that being that option, and
you've missed something completely specific to this question.
Anti-bet.
That we've done to address some of this.
Oh, okay.
As you said, in terms of the base game or bonus being that accessible, it is a volatile game to an extent in the base game. And as Jamie said, we introduced an anti-bet to basically increase the feature frequency for players in the UK that can't buy a bonus, that may want to... I don't want to go into sort of the numbers of spins, but essentially, raise the cost of their initial bet, but more chance of triggering a feature and sort of raising the volatility. So, just to jump in, we've actually, in terms of that question specifically, looked at that and brought in the anti-bet almost as a result
we've definitely
the UK players in mind, right?
As English as we are, end of the day, we have to take into consideration which is likely to be one of our biggest markets, and that is the UK customers. So, as much as give them as much base game action as possible, and of course the anti-bet to increase the chance of bonus is super important.
Yeah, and Courtney Davis asked a similar question. We said, from seeing on our streams, a lot of people in the UK find certain providers now hard to play or extremely volatile or hard to get a bonus. So, how has that, influenced us making the slot? And essentially we have tried to make something well-rounded that suits, different player profiles, but certainly the anti-bet is, adds something to the game to sort of bridge the gap.
Yeah, I have in my mind, a specific number, with regard to, like, I want a good likelihood of a bonus within that amount of spins. So my number is like 100 spins. I really want there to be a very, very high chance of a bonus within 100 spins. And I think that's really, really important for the UK market, where the UK market has moved. We've seen some really, really popular games, like Big Bass Bonanza has been super popular over the last couple of years from Pragmatic Play. And one of the great things about that game is that it does have a very, very high bonus frequency. So
but it has no base.
It has no base, but you can't. If this is what UK players are wanting to play, if that's what they're enjoying playing, then I think
everyone loves a bonus.
Everyone loves a bonus. Yeah.
Bonus is number one.
Everyone loves the bonus.
Everyone.
Andy Mather has asked, why did we feel now was the right time to build slots and compete in this market?
Let's not be downhearted, but in the last few years, the last year or so, YouTube's been a lot more difficult in terms of growth as a platform for our streaming business. And we looked at other ways of what we can do with this YouTube traffic that we've created from our streaming businesses. Fruity Slots is heavily, and Hideous Slots, but headed towards search engine optimization. And we thought, if YouTube and streaming is not going to grow, what is the best way to potentially use this community? And that is, it felt that now's the time that, with the skill sets that we got together, let's give it a shot. and here we are in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, as the other businesses mature, the YouTube is a changing sort of situation. Streaming generally is more difficult, and we aren't certainly my channel is not growing as quickly as it once was.
Is it awful to say that we're not getting any younger?
We're not getting any younger either. Yeah, so
can we still be streaming when we're 65?
I want a challenge. I like a challenge. I like the idea of taking on, biting off a little bit more than I can chew, maybe, and be like, okay, I'm under pressure. We need to make this work.
It just made sense, didn't it? Let's be honest.
Sometimes timing. We might have wanted to do this 2 or 3 years ago, and I sort of did 3 years ago, but timing was never right. We're busy with other stuff. Other parts of the business was growing, or there was difficulties. And then sometimes it all feels the right time.
We were able to invest in this, and this is something that maybe we couldn't have been doing a few years ago. But as a studio which is self-funded without any outside investment, it's taken other businesses to be successful to get us to this position. And to be able to invest.
Timing as well. 3 years ago, we would have needed to raise money. Now we're fortunate enough to be able to, at least for the start, self-finance it. And like Will said as well, challenge sometimes. I've been in gaming for 15 plus years, very much on the marketing side, but I've learned, various different parts of the business. And sometimes you want a fresh challenge, you want to push yourself, you want to drive yourself, you take risks, learning, sort of self-growth and all of that.
Everything in marketing, we're in the hands of the Google gods, which is kind of scary.
And the YouTube gods and the Twitch gods.
The Twitch. The marketing god, you're basically you're completely tied on based on what everyone else feels. Whereas with product, if it's successful, there's no one's
more ownership.
There's no one taking it down.
Yeah, you have more USP. You have some IP. Right?
I like to call it a bit more control. Of course, you have no guarantees and everything's a gamble. But in terms of control, compared to marketing, it's nice to have both angles.
It feels like you do have a bit more control of your own destiny.
Yeah.
Success or not, win or lose. If YouTube decided tomorrow, no gambling's allowed. Yes, there's other platforms, but overnight that has an impact. This route, it feels like we're sort of also de-risking other parts of the business, even though it's a separate company. But IP and tech, I think, has...
And even if YouTube did turn it off tomorrow, it wouldn't stop anything. We'd crack on with DreamSpin Studios and you'd still see our games.
And Fruity Slots and Hidden Slots would still be an affiliate site.
Yep.
JSW2019, John on YouTube, shout out, because he actually came up with 16 questions that we're not going to rattle through.
16 questions.
16 questions. So I'm going to pick out what I feel is some of the ones that haven't been covered already. Jamie, Will, or myself, how many spins do we test the game? Not in terms of the actual putting it into a text, not a simulation and running billions, but ourselves in terms of playing the game to get a feel and a sort of balance the game between volatility, base game wins, bonus. How many spins do you feel you've put through or would be comfortable to get quite a good take and steer on sort of the RTP?
On this game or any game?
Well, we'll start with this game, but also we'll go into any game, because obviously if you give any game a session over hundreds of spins or even thousands, you could be running at massive different ends of the spectrum. So now, how many spins do you think you've put through, and how important is it?
How many you put through? Listen. I think for me it takes 25 spins to know if a game's volatile or not. That would be my judgment call for me, to take a call on another person's game or even ours. 25 spins.
That's interesting. I would say that within one spin, or even before I've spun a game, I have already an impression on that game. Just the first impression on the look.
If it's volatile?
Not on volatility. Mass aside, look is everything.
Well, I mean, you will have some idea. I mean, just without even taking a spin, you can look at the mechanics. You can read the game rules and look at the mechanics and straight away work out, well,
no one does that.
I know, maybe not, but it goes back to what we said before. The setup of the mechanics determines a lot about what you can and can't do.
See, this is also how we differ. I'm, as a player, do not want to know. I don't want to read nothing. I want to find out by spinning. I don't want to learn anything pre-game. I like to know during the action.
I'm quite with Jamie, especially when I first started this channel.
I'm pretty sure. I think I've never ever read instructions pre-game on one game in my entire life.
Yeah,
for the first time I played it, never looked.
I think I'm very close to that. When we started this channel, I had I was a gambler, more poker, like the casino, so I had gambling and meat, but bits of the old fob tea and fruit machines. Online slots, close to zero. So, one would think that, when I start reading game rules, I just like playing a game and what's
Learning
happened
on the
here.
go.
Learning on the go, and I quite enjoy that, not knowing and seeing what happens. Will, I don't know, when you load up a game, I guess we've played so many games now that we might think we got a steer of something. But are you someone that reads the game info first?
No, I would just fire in as well.
Fire in.
Yeah.
So
Again, gambling is too impulsive. I mean, you've got to be you've got to be one of those guys that goes to watch horse racing and not bet just because you love horses. To go and turn on a slot for the first time and read the rules before playing a spin. Isn't gambling impulsive?
Well,
Spinning's
a well-designed
impulsive.
slot is that you should be able to really give it, like, I think kind of you really should be able to give it maybe that 25 spin mark and have some idea and understanding of the
I think it's
mechanics.
fair.
If it's not making itself clear over that amount of time, then in some ways you're
You
it's
just
not
know
so good.
you know enough by the win lines. If something, you've done a 2 spin and you get paid 120p and 20 spin, you just know this is a volley game. I'm just not going to go. You know what you're in for. I find that you can tell.
We've gone off track on the actual question, but it was a good answer. But for our game, in terms of testing, in terms of getting an impression of how our game plays and volatility and balance, how many spins do you think you've put through, and what sort of number do you think we will put through on our own games?
This could sound unhealthy.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying. Whatever.
I mean,
I was
no,
going to
no,
say
I
how
mean,
many
like,
spins.
I will just. I mean, I've always got the game.
Answer the question.
I've always got the game like on.
Spin.
Like infinite spins,
Yeah,
auto
so-
plays in the back, but that doesn't mean I'm concentrating on it.
No,
Do you know what I mean? Like,
correct.
it's just always ticking away, but I'm doing something else. I'm working on it.
We've
but
done tens of thousands of spins, right?
yeah,
And
of
more.
course, yeah.
And more. There you go.
Maybe hundreds of thousands of
Correct.
spins on it.
A lot of spins. John's JSW second question. Are we going to, and this is a great question because it's a big part of what we're going to be doing, but are we going to be taking ideas from viewers? Are we going to maybe be running polls? Are we going to use our community to create future games? As players who are going to play the game, hopefully, are we going to try and give something back to them?
I would say definitely yes, but I would say with the caveat that it does need to be the ideas. A lot of the time, if you ask people for ideas, they're like they want the world and they want a little bit more. So yes, but we will have to obviously sanity check all of those ideas mathematically, make sure that we can make it work. So of course we want those seed ideas from the community, but they may not end up, when it actually ends up getting boiled down, it might end up being something slightly different. But of course we want the feedback and that.
Yeah, I certainly would like
interaction
to.
with the community.
Again, for me, I don't think how many ideas we're going to get in terms of like the game, but in terms of theme, I think no reason why our community can't get involved in things like that, and that could be something we can be proud of.
To a small extent, just to start with, they have a little initiative we've done on our first game.
Yeah, of course, because because we're giving people the opportunity to kind of name some of the principal characters in the first game. I mean, it's only a little something, but in future games, we could take that further. Maybe they get the idea to choose the look of one of the characters or one of the symbols or something like that. There's plenty of opportunities for getting people involved.
So, John, just to expand further, 100% we're going to be using the community. I'm going to go a bit further than what Will said. He's right. We have to obviously sanity check everything, but there's going to be initiatives where people and competitions where they can win opportunities to really get involved, test games with us, build games with us. Obviously, we have the final say, and we've got to make sure RTPs and features, but there's going to be some really unique opportunities for the community to almost build a game with us.
That's what we said. It's like what I mentioned before. It's the USP, right?
Yeah.
And this is exactly what other studios can go to their friends and say, "You want to do this? So it's a good idea." But who are their friends? Whereas we've got this huge platform with market research, people that love slots, who we can communicate with and communicate back, and we can, they can let us know what they like and what we like, and it's just a huge added value, I think, that we have over other studios that gives us that chance to succeed in this cluttered market.
Absolutely, and for sure, it's one of the key reasons Light and Wonder and PlayZido, who we've partnered with, who's going to be our aggregator and distributor, were so keen to work with us. They really understood that market, and
they said it in the press release how important it was for the streamer-led content is something that they're really, really keen on, and we're the first in the first to do it, as in our own studio, and I think hopefully we'll do them proud.
Absolutely. And then, so talking about streamers as streamers, do you does it excite you are you bothered whether other streamers are going to play our game, are going to rate our game, and do you think we'll partner with some to do any promotions or what have you? But we're lucky that we've got some friends, fellow streamers we get on with. So, out of, not goodwill gestures, you'd like to think they'll play our game. But that something you thought about? Would you be proud to see another streamer play the game? Does it bother you?
It doesn't bother me at all. I want to hear what their feedback is, and I hope it's good feedback. I'd like to hear, what they think about it. Of course. Same with everyone. Like,
we can't really lose with the streamers though, because if they criticise it, people can just think, oh, they're going to criticise it on purpose because they're competitors. So I don't think I think we'll win situation.
I think most of the guys I know, will give us an honest opinion about it.
Is there any streamer you at the top you like? I want to see him play my game, our game.
Chipmunks. I really hope he gets on it and plays it.
And you?
Bob or Sammy?
I'm going for Drake. I love
Drake. Yeah.
Drake.
I'm a big fan of Drake. First album. Question, Kelvin, do you think one day you'd like to own your own casino as well?
No,
that ship Simple has question. Sort of sailed. Very, very tough market. Not many new casinos launch and successful this day and age, so no. He also said, who decides the RTP on your slots? Does he mean, the casinos? Do they have an influence, or does he mean ourselves? I think that's basically two questions, so we can answer both of them.
Yeah, we will do different RTP models, and that's kind of like a discussion with the aggregator who's kind of informing us about what the casinos want to take,
and also there's compliance in certain geos that you have to have a certain RTP.
Yeah, so Kelvin, very much led by the casinos you're working with and different jurisdictions. He also said, very short and snappy, how long did it take from our inception, first game idea, to actually finish the first lot?
This is a good question. Well, it's supposed to be 5 minutes. William?
We had something. We could still go back and keep polishing and changing small bits. This is always the problem. So until someone says, right, that's it, you can't touch it anymore, there's always going to be sort of like final polishing that you do. However, it was probably sort of like 5 or 6 months from us originally talking it through to actually having something that we could click and play. Although, we weren't happy with it. We redid it. We went back and revisited. I think going forward, we would be looking to get a game turn around in sort of 3 or 4 months.
I think we learned a lot about our processes in the first game, and it will be done very differently on the second game, and this will make things a lot quicker and smoother for us moving forward.
Will's optimistic. Will's saying 3 or 4 months. I'm going to target sort of 6 to 7 months on a game. Some other providers may watch this and think 9 months, 10 months. We'll see. On our first game, one caveat to say to that is, for our very first game, we had nothing. There was no Lego block. There was nothing. So we had to start and build a framework, and I won't bore everyone with the details behind that. So the first game naturally took a lot longer. One, because we had to learn, and we had to employ people and go through all the teething errors. And, there's processes that we won't repeat on the second game. But to build that framework that's going to allow us then to build a second and third game on is very important. So I think everyone we spoke to when we told them what we're going to do, and different developers or different people that help, other studios sort of said, your first game is naturally going to take longer anyway, because if you don't have a framework, you need to build that, and that's luckily parts of that is reusable. So Kelvin, to answer your question, first game's taken well over a year. But going forward, we hope to be able to get that down. We started with the question, what is the overall goal of having our studio? I'm going to flip it. It's very similar, but say, what does success look like to you?
2 red Ferraris and 3 yachts.
Success for me looks like basically the casinos like our games, players like our games. They want more of our games, and we're around in 2, 3, 4 years, going from producing 3 or 4 games a year up to 10, 20 games.
That's the goal or the dream.
If we can be producing 20 games a year within 4 to 5 years, that looks like success for me. I'd be very happy.
Good answer.
I think the thing is with success is that, I think it's a mistake that sometimes people make. It's kind of like, okay, well, I've done this now and that's it. I'm done. I'm a success. I think, and you see it with game studios as well. They make one hit and then they kind of rest on their laurels a bit. No, you take it from one game to the next. That game was a success. Then we need to put every bit as much effort into the next one. Success is like a continued thing, not something that's just earned once and then forgotten about.
Excellent. Jamie, now we've answered that. Do you stick with your original?
Well, if all your things happen, I'm going to get what I want. So we're in a great spot.
We're still 2 Ferraris and a yacht. Some great questions from our community. We're going to do lots more of these.
YouTube weekly.
Some of the questions we could actually just do our own podcast on for sure. Just remember, guys, it is a gambling podcast. So this is intended for over 18s. Remember, always gamble responsibly. When the fun stops, stop. And yeah, look forward to seeing you on our next pods. It may be with or without Jamie and Will. We're going to bring guests in. We're going to get people in remotely. And anything you want to hear on the pod or talk about, please let us know and we'll do our best to deliver.